And welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. You're on with Crystal Fleming, and today I have got one of the hardest working agents in this business today. Girls and boys, if you want an agent who will work his ass off till he dies, this is the person for you. He does not give up. So I can't wait to talk to him. But before we do that, you know the routine. We've got an advert from Marianne Curley's fourth book of the Time Guardian. I will read the blurb and then we'll get to meet this amazing man. The battle is over, the war is won, the prophecy complete. But life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan. Struggling to cope with tragic loss, at odds with friends and the guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping at shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself, the goddess Athena's death, Giselle swears revenge, to nullify the Immortals' plan for world domination, but Giselle hadn't planned on love. And that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart, or the strings of a goddess short on praise, but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the guard and the order battle through the past into the impossible future, darkness lurks around every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadows? And just a reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemarie Rowan, the British Roman crime series, is having a large portion of her donations donated to, or a large portion of her royalties donated to the Ukraine refugee crisis, along with her agent who's donated her commission. With that being said, let's welcome the hardest working agent in the business, and someone I like to call a friend, Eric Miller. Welcome to the show. And of course, with our own history, we've known each other for a couple of years, and I can safely say that you are one of the hardest working agents, and it's truly an honor to have you as the first agent that we're having on the show. It's the listeners, they want to know about the literacy agency side of things, because there's been a lot of scandal in the literacy side of things lately. There's been agencies that shut due to maybe not being socially correct and maybe not fully understanding their clients, or there's also been ones that have maybe not been diverse or totally inclusive. So it's nice to have an agent on here who is inclusive and he cares, and that's the great thing that you guys are all going to learn about today. And I know Eric is going to sort of have his head in his hands, shaking his head, because his inbox is going to fill up with submissions, I'm guaranteed. But trust me, ladies, he's well worth it. And if you want someone that can handle steamy hot romances and romance novels, he's your guy. So I think that it's true. You certainly handled my stuff, and I know mine can get a little bit steamy. So So let's talk about the current releases that your authors had. What's the ones that you've worked on and that you would say are the ones that you're most excited about that's been released lately?
Well, again, I want to thank you, Crystal, for having me, and it's great to see everybody and meet everybody. So I've been in the publishing world for about 40 years. I was a book publisher first, a company called Wicker Park Press. My parents had a company called Academy Chicago Publishers, and they were a small publisher, but they did a lot of different kinds of books, fiction, nonfiction. They retired. They sold it to Chicago Review Press. So the book Academy Chicago Publishers is an imprint within Chicago Review Press. So you won't really find a website for Academy Chicago. We used to have it. You'd have to do like a Wayback Machine or something to find it. But if you want to learn about my mom, it's on my website. It's 3ibooks.com. It's the numeral 3, letter I like India, and then books like the kind you read. And then you click on my inspiration, and you'll see stuff about my mom. She had a PhD, and she was really amazing. So that's my inspiration, and my passion is to give um, voice to the unheard and to help people. I'm passionate about helping people get their stuff in print, and I'm telling you, it's not really anything that I did like amazingly well. I just never gave up. I never gave up. I just kept going. So I've had some really good success. So I do want to talk about a couple of books that are coming out. I was telling Crystal about this book about the Halloween film franchise. I created a series called the Classic American Horror Films, something like that. Classic. I can't remember the name right now, but it's a series. We're doing the Halloween book. One of my clients is a woman named Kim Gottlieb Walker. She's a photographer, and she was on the photography for the first two films. There's 13 films. There's a 13th film coming out in October, so we're gonna, we're piggybacking on that. She worked on Halloween 1 and 2, and she's actually got a romance that she's working called Lenswoman. That book is being considered by Hallmark. It's being considered by Blackstone. There's a couple other ones. It's not quite there yet, but she's been working on it. But she's part of the Halloween. She's part of the Halloween book. He interviewed Scotty McCoy, who's the editor. Interviewed 14 different people. He's got 14 people from the movies that are interviews. Also a trivia section about each movie, word scramble, trivia section. It's really a great book. So that one's coming out. The one that I'm really excited about, there's a series. It's a private eye series set in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where Yale University is, called Elm City Blues. And it's coming out from Wolfpack Publishing it's actually called Rough Edges Press in Las Vegas. And I've sold them 3 different series. So the series that I said, Elm City Blues, it's really good, man. It's really, really good. And so the second one is called For a Dancer, which is about a stripper that's getting stalked. And then the third one is Mosaic, which is set during the COVID thing, but it's really good. It's sort of reminiscent of Robert Parker and Sue Grafton. It's first rate.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I know there's a lot of crime listeners out here. So.
And it says best-selling author. He was in the LA Times bestseller list for the Snark Handbook. They sold 100,000 copies of Skyhorse. So he's
awesome.
And that's a success story. I'm telling you, it took 2 years. It took 2 years for us to get this deal, So then one of my first, so there's a lady here named S.J. Slagle, and she's got a book called London Spies. There's London Spies, Oslo Spies, and Washington Spies. And those are spy stories. Those are available now as well, all 3 of them, from Rough Edges Press. And it's about a woman named Phyllis Bowden, who's a CIA agent. I think they called it something. It was like the OC. Anyway, she's a CIA agent. So it starts at the end of World War II in London. Then she goes to Oslo, and her boyfriend gets caught in Romania. She ends up going to Washington. That's a new one, and it's all about the nuclear bomb. So that's a great series. And then
that sounds it.
Scottish stuff. I'm really excited. I just sold a series of art theft mysteries by, her name's Beatrice Green. She lives in Edinburgh, and it's called Stealing the Spanish Princess. So there's a murder of a Russian oligarch's girlfriend, and a priceless El Greco painting gets stolen. So goes all the way right over to St. Petersburg. And then the second book is called The Chagall Cello, which is set in. It's about these Chagall paintings got stolen during World War II in Kristallnacht, and broken glass in 1938 in Berlin. So there's a triple murder of this of the old Nazi guy and his son and his. So that's there. And then the third one is called The Viking Horde, and that's set in the Isle of the Viking Horde. It's set in the Isle of Harris.
Yeah,
something in Harris and something. Anyway, in the Outer Hebrides. And that one is coming. So I just sold that one too. Right? So I'm getting, my confidence level is like, it's going really high.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really on a roll here. It's just fantastic.
So 3 times 3 is 9. So
yeah, no, you're doing incredible. Yeah,
those are the ones that I'm excited about. And it's just there's other stuff coming out too, but I just wanted to share that with you, And
So
if
what
you have this
inspired
theory,
you to become a literacy agent? What was the
that's
inspiration
really,
behind that?
yeah, that's interesting because I was a publisher and I was sort of an editor and I was kind of a marketing person. And Cinda, who's the lady, her name's Cinda. She's the lady that wrote The London Spies, Also Spies, and Washington. She lives here in Reno. I live in Reno, Nevada. It's kind of
Yeah.
on the border of, it's not near Las Vegas. It's kind of on the border of California. It's close to California. And she
Yeah.
kind of convinced me to do it just because I was trying to help her get, her books published. And I really found
Hmm.
my calling. It was two authors here that are clients of mine that sort of said, you really need to be an agent. You really should try that. So
Yeah.
I just jumped in with both feet. I sent something to Avon, just like right off the bat. It was like, oh, this
Yep.
is great. You need to do this. And of course, rejected, rejected, rejected. But what made me do an agent is just that it just sort of, it really does. I used to try like being like like a book promotion person. I wasn't very good at that. Being an editor is fine, but it just sort of it's kind of a niche for me.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. You're either called to it or you're not. Like, I mean, I tried to go away from writing. I sort of walked away after you and me had worked together, and I couldn't. I just couldn't walk away. I had too many stories that called me back, and I remember writing in ICU, and the nurse saying to me that I'm the only person she's ever known to be sitting writing a story in ICU while I have a trach in and I'm not well. So either you're called to do something or you're not, and I think that's really important, and it it has an impact on us all, and I'm very excited to be able to have you on so you can share your story and your feelings on it. So let's talk about your book side of life, because obviously agents and writers, we have to all read a lot. It's part of our discipline and part of who we are. So what book have you read, obviously a published book, that you've read recently that stuck with you the most?
The I read it kind of every other year. It's Stendhal's The Red and the Black. It's just
Yeah.
it's such a great book because it's set in 1830, and 1830 was really kind of like the beginning of the modern era. Just this whole idea of
Yeah.
like because it was there. So that's one book that I always come back to. It's just like a really it's a 19th century European novel that kind of set the stage for a whole bunch of other ones to come. Like Flaubert and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. But
Yeah.
it's just very that book. I don't know. I keep reading. It's so modern in its own way, considering, and it's really it's really good. So I like that. I also like Mark Twain. Mark
Hmm.
Twain. He did a book called Roughing It. It was his first book, and he came out from. He lived in Hannibal, Missouri. He lived in Missouri in the middle of the country, and he came out here, and it's just this amazing diary. He's just such a great. He's such a great writer, and that was his first book. And actually, I think he did one called Life on the Mississippi. That was like a bestseller in Germany. So he was just this
Very
inspirational.
talented. Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing. And he could do anything. His he did a diary, or he did he did this. I can't remember. It's from the University of California Press. He wouldn't let it be published for 100 years, and he did this from the grave. He actually created a bestseller from the grave. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Wow.
nobody can do that. You know what I'm saying? So
No,
he's
that's
he's
amazing.
amazing. He's amazing. So to me, he's a great writer. I like Edgar Allan Poe. I like Nathaniel Hawthorne. I like some of the American,
I was excited to be coming on with you today because I actually had a list of people I wanted to recommend to you that are published, very successful, and in fact they've been on the show. Um, Now this is obviously coming out in the second week of November, so I was thinking to myself, I gotta tell them because that way you can listen to these people before you read them.
yeah, right.
And
You said like
yeah,
there's a way to like click on it and watch the podcast, right?
Yeah, you can listen to it on Spotify, and you can come and the show's everywhere. So, one of the names I was going to suggest you was M.W. Craven, and he writes an incredible murder series set in Washington, D.C., but he actually is a British ex-probation officer.
Interesting.
So it has a really good edge to it, and a great sense of humor, and I think you'll love it anyway. And the other person I was going to recommend to you is Fiona Cummings, and she is a international bestseller.
Yeah, I think I've heard of her.
Yeah, The Bone Collector, I think it was Bone Shaker, and she's just released a new one called Into the Dark, and these are very nitty-gritty British-style crime novels, which I knew you would appreciate and love, so I kept some names aside for you. So
there's a lady, her name's Jo Dutton, Jo Babington Jones. I've got this book from her. It's called The Right Way to Die, like right as in the right way to die. And it's about
okay.
This lady
that could be interesting. Yeah.
She lives in a little seaside town in England, right? It's like sort of idyllic, but she joins this book group, and they all write the murder mystery. Well, it turns out one of them is like a serial killer, and they have to, so it starts out as kind of a cozy mystery. Yeah. And then it gets really gritty. It gets like really
good.
So
the last name you need
the right way. So I have a guy. He's actually an older gentleman, and he reads books for me. He's this amazing reader. He's just some people are writers, some people are readers, some people are agents, but this guy really knows how. So I told him, hey, read this book, and I had only read like half of it. He kind of was to the call, and he's like, what was that? Well, you sent me the weirdest stuff. So I was like, oh shit, I need to read this. So it was like 9 o'clock at night. I'm reading it on my screen. I'm reading it. The end comes. I go to the bathroom. Somebody like pokes me on the shoulder. I'm like, it's like
you jump at your skin.
That kind of impact. You know what I'm saying? It was just like art imitating life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, it's big. I like it.
The last TV should.
I'm close.
Yeah. The last one you need to write down is Marzi Taylor.
Okay.
From Shetland. Now she's actually the second episode. Marzi, Marasali, Marzi Taylor, and she's actually her episode's already come out on Spotify. Mm-hmm. And she was my English. She was an English teacher in Shetland, and she kind of guided me into writing. And we keep in close contact. And she's incredibly gifted. She does an entire murder series around a sailing boat. That's
cool.
Because she actually sails. She sails real ships and stuff. And I think it's very different, very eerie. And I just knew. Your name came to my head as soon as I read it, the first one.
That's cool.
So those are 3 great authors for you to check out and enjoy at leisure.
Appreciate it.
And those are all going to be episodes that we have on the podcast too, which is fun.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Who do you wish, if you had infinite time and you could just sit and read for enjoyment, who would you pick and why?
Like which writer, you mean? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. You can have a writer and a series, so you can pick an author and a series that you can read.
That's a good question. I'm thinking about normally I'm pretty good at like coming back with stuff. I think I like the 19th century European writers. I really do, and I would love so. Probably Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, like War and Peace, or Notes from the Underground, or some other kind of thing. That's just if I had just to like sit around and read stuff, that's probably what I would read. Flaubert. I like Balzac. I like some of those guys. So if I had time, I could sit on my porch.
Well, that's the
read.
idea. Like eventually, one day
I
you just sit
know,
on your porch and read
it's the
and
whole idea. Like
relax.
it's the whole idea. Like I had some ideas for books or whatever, but it's like the cobbler's son has no shoes. I have to keep reading other people's stuff. And
Yeah, of
I've got
course.
a lot to do, but it's a good problem to have. I think it's a good
Yeah,
problem to have. Too much
it
to
is
read.
a good. And I mean, I know that I'll probably never stop writing. I'll never retire from writing because I just adore like the stories that's in my head's never going to go away.
Yeah,
But I also adore the process of literally sitting down and writing the stories and experiencing
I'll
the
say
world
this.
that they've to offer.
I'll say this for your audience too. Just don't give up. Just keep doing.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm impressed with you, Crystal. Is like you never gave up. You just kept going. And if it's
Some people
not,
call me a bulldozer.
I just, don't give up.
But yeah, if you don't have that grit and determination, you're never going to make it anywhere.
That's right.
And I've fought back from some really serious stuff in my life, and that's the main thing for me. Like just looking at what I've come through and what I've come back from. There's no way that I'm not gonna just keep plowing on and plowing ahead until I get there, even if it does drive those that were around me crazy.
What are you going to do?
It's really really important.
No, what are you going to do?
Is there an author, past and present, who's influenced, inspired, and made you excited to read books and to represent authors?
Like I had mentioned Mark Twain as an inspiration because he was also a publisher. Like he came up with
Yeah.
President Grant. He came up with his memoirs, and he figured out what the market was for it. And that book's still in print, and so I'm inspired by him. I just kind of feel like he was not just a writer, but he was like a public figure. So to me, I get just reading his stuff. I have his collected essays, and I just read him, and it's just he's so witty and so modern in his own way. So for me, I mean, I really do like him. And there's other books that I have that like I like Dickens. I like some of the older stuff. But
Yeah.
again, and like I said, so like mysteries or something for me. It's kind of I used to edit for them, edit mystery.
Hmm.
And like it was like work to read them. But I enjoy a good
Yeah.
one. I really do enjoy a good mystery. So that's I like romance, I like thriller, I like horror, I like erotica, I like all this. Those are the kinds of things that I'm
You just like a
drawn
little bit
to.
of everything.
Yeah, I'm drawn to the sort of genre fiction, but I found that romance is the hardest one to kind of
Yeah.
break into, just because they're so. And it's like YA or children's books too. Those two categories, especially romance,
Hmm.
because they're so rigid in their view. And
Yeah, it's a much harder industry. It's much more demanding, I think, and
yeah,
you're right. You have to know the right people to
you
make your
do.
way in and to actually meet. What what genre are you drawn to when you visit bookshops or an online bookstore? Where do you feel like your heart sort of tells you to go when you're looking
Well,
for a
I
new
kind
book to
of like
read?
when I go to a bookstore. There's a bookstore here in Reno called Grassroots, and it's kind of a
Yeah.
combination of new books and used books. They have CDs. They have so there's an independent bookstore here in Reno, but they're kind of snobby. I mean, it's very nice, like in an old house, and it's kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I bought books in there, but Grassroots, I always buy something. And I think my judge of a
Hmm.
bookstore is if you find two or three books that you really want to read in the bookstore, that means they're doing well. Like in other words, like booksellers, like bookshops.
Yeah.
That's like being a writer, but having a bookshop, it's almost like you're curating the selection. So you want
Yeah.
to choose the books. You want to do the window displays. You want to do this stuff. And Grassroots, they even have books that are outside that are like
Yep.
$2 or $3 or something. And it's just like you can get games, you can get stuff. But I go in there, so I'm kind of drawn to their self-help section. They have this really cool self-help section. It's really good. And I found
Well,
books
that's
in there.
good. And Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
good
great.
because like it's
I
a
just
way of
grab it to
recycling books.
then they have a room
Yeah.
with like YA stuff, and it's like if I want to see kind of what's going on, they do a really good job. So nothing like a good bookshop, man. I just
Yeah, I
if
love a good
it's a
bookshop,
holiday
yeah.
for me, like I go to San Francisco, there's some amazing bookstores in San Francisco. It's just like there's one called like Red Apple or Green Apple, I mean, like Green Apple or something like that. And I went in there, I was like, whoa, I could spend all day in here, but I was with my kids, so I had to leave. But and so like 3 or 4 books that I wanted to buy. So if I had all the money, that's what they interviewed Stephen King. They asked him what he wanted to do, and he said, "I just want to read books and go to the movies. That's all I
Yeah.
want to do."
That's the
And you know
best
what?
thing,
That's what
yeah.
I stole that line. I'm like, read books and go to the movies, and I haven't been to the movies in a long time. But if I was,
I don't think any of us has, to be
I know,
honest.
I know, it's like I don't even know if the theaters are open, but
Hmm.
I think it would be great, And so, like I said, a bookshop is like a personal statement too.
Yeah.
I think there's one bookshop I went to in the South one time. This was like in the year 2000. I went to this
Hmm.
called Books a Million, and it was in
All
Ocala,
right.
Florida. I went in there. I could not find one book, and the whole thing. And I was in there for like 2 hours. I was like, okay, this is a challenge. I'm going to try to find a book that I want to read, and I couldn't do it. So it's not always the case when you go into a store, like a bookstore, and
Hmm.
find something to read. It's a pleasure if you can do that. So when I go to Grassroots
Yeah, if
every
you can go
time,
in and
it's like
find
I just
one,
have to
yeah.
nail my wallet because I always buy something. Always. I can't go in there and not buy something. Whereas if the other one is called Sundance. It's good, but it's almost like the books match the wallpaper.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird you say that because I have also thought that on occasion when I've gone into bookstores, like, why are they all so colorful?
Right.
What's going on with this? So, has there ever been a book that you started reading and wished you'd never picked up? And if so,
A
why?
lot of times, yeah, right. Like, oh, this sucks. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like not just that it sucks, but maybe there's something about it that's just too much for you, or it's made it so that you can't read it,
Well,
and
it's
you're
interesting. This
left
one guy,
wondering why somebody wrote
this
it.
one guy, he lived in Detroit, and he wrote this book about this Catholic family. And he was going on and on, and I was like reading it and reading it. He was really nice to me. He was really good. He was like, I've got this other novel I've
Yep.
done. I started reading it, and it was like, what's the point? What's the point here? You know what I'm saying? It's like he's talking
Yep.
about the guy getting dressed up for work or what's going on here or his sister. And it went back and forth in time. And I was just like, I'm sorry. I just like, it was just really
I don't get
pretentious
this. Yeah.
piece of crap.
I
So,
know, but it's good
that
because
happens. Not
yeah,
everything can be amazing.
authors need to hear that so they can get better and they can
Yeah.
expand, and that's the thing, like we need to be able to hear that something isn't perfect or isn't isn't up someone's alley so that we can maybe correct where we've gone wrong, or we can simplify the message. There's 101 things that we can do. um, if that story is really important to us, sometimes people just write for the sake of writing, and I
Right.
think that comes across, and it's sad. It's very,
Yeah.
it's very sad, and you can tell that in a book sometimes if there's no passion or love that's gone into it.
Well, the other
So
thing.
coming into the agent part of your life
Mhm.
and your job, and what would you say drew you to it, and what would be the one part of it that would maybe draw a listener that's listening to this podcast to it?
So wait, so what's the question exactly? Like as an agent,
So as an agent, what would you say drew you the most to the job, and what do you think would draw one of the listeners to this podcast to maybe following in your footsteps?
well, I kind of felt like I'm an agent that actually reads the books. Okay, so I read the books. I know it's but I kind of said I kind of presented myself as somebody like a little bit different, like in other words, more accessible. I'm more
Yeah.
accessible. Even as I get a little bit more successful now, I have an office, and I mean, I made some progress. I moved
Yeah.
into another place. I got my own place. And, it took me a long time, but it's actually this idea of never giving up and loving a project. I love a project, any kind of project. It's like, oh, this is interesting. How do we spin this? What's the strategy? So, in other words, like for instance, it might not always pan out. Like my strategy could be wrongheaded or it doesn't work, but I want to work with the author to do
Yeah.
something sort of so that it's successful. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm drawn to it
You're
because
hardworking.
yeah, and I do it when I'm really good, when I got something really good, like you guys are writers. When you got something really going, like you're writing something
Yeah.
and it's like really working out and it's really going, or maybe even the character starts telling you what to write. You know what I mean? Because you've developed it so
That
much.
happens periodically.
Yeah,
Yep.
that does, where it's just you're channeling whatever this character. Well, for me,
Yep.
sometimes when I'm working on a book proposal, it's like, I got this, add this, do this, figure this out. And it's just like, man, that's that when you did it. Like, for instance, when I did the Halloween book, I had submitted it
Yeah.
previously, but I didn't have the pictures from Kim Gottlieb Walker. When I had finally put the pictures together, I was like, this is a slam dunk. This is going to work. And the publisher calls me back, goes, looks good to me. I'll do it. And it was just like that sense of accomplishment because I knew I had one going. I knew it. And it
Yep.
was like
You just
that's
needed that final piece. Yeah.
you can't have that every day, but it's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's go do
Yeah.
this.
That's
And that's my
yeah.
attitude.
That's a
Let's
really good
go
thing.
do this. Or we got this. And it's interesting too. I met a guy. He's got a book of poetry. Poetry's hard to
Yeah.
sell. Right? Poetry's really hard to sell. But I've got a client that did a poet. There's an Indian publisher called Cyberwit in India, and he called me and he said, "Do you have anything else that you want to do?" Well, anyway, this guy, he's got all these neuroscientists. He basically says that poetry is for health and well-being, and he does TED talks. And he's got all this stuff. So I sent it
Yeah.
to the Indian publisher. I said, "What do you think of this?" He goes, "I love it. I think it's great. I want to do it." And then then the author started quibbling with me, like, "Well, what's he going to do? Like, why are we going to do this?" And I was just like, my attitude as an agent, I made a personal transformation. I was just like, why not? Why not try? This is a
Yeah.
small little publisher. Well, like, oh, I don't want to do it. Okay, well, hey, the writer's the boss. I'm working for him, but I'm just like, I don't
Yep.
understand why you wouldn't try a different market, like Indian market. It might work, right? And this guy was
I would jump at it. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, well,
This makes you global. Yeah.
I didn't even read it. I was like, okay, fine. But I felt bad for the guy because I found too that when a publisher really wants something, they'll wriggle through broken
Yeah.
glass to publish it. They'll do whatever. And that's
Yeah.
a
Of
great
course.
problem
Yeah.
to have. That's a great problem to have. You want to get there.
It does. It is.
That's like the
And
Shangri-La.
it's
He
so
wanted
worth
it.
it.
And it was perfect. And he
Yeah.
even sent a cover. He said, "What do you think?" "I'll do it. I'll do whatever you want it in color. I'll do it in color. I'll do it, whatever you want." And I was just like,
Yeah.
no.
And it's not like he asked you guys to translate
Exactly.
them or
No, I
anything.
don't. I don't get it, but he wants.
There's sometimes there's people that wants the world and
Yeah.
they don't appreciate just what
He
they've
did it
got.
himself, and he was, and it looks good. I mean, he did a really good job. He's an artist. He's a poet. It's good.
Yeah.
But that wasn't it. That wasn't the thing because if something's good, doesn't always mean it's going to sell. But when you've got a platform that somebody else wants to do it, like this Indian publisher, did a nice job
Yeah.
on the book too. It was good. He's a little bit weird. He doesn't say much, but he was like, "Yeah, I want it." And I was like, "No."
Yeah. No, that's a good thing.
So that
And
it happens both ways, right? Like the publisher say no,
yeah, it does.
and the writer say no. It's like, okay,
Well, I never say no.
yeah,
I made
yeah,
that. I made that my mission. I started this 10 years ago, and
yeah,
Ian said to me, "It's like just take every opportunity you get because you never know what's gonna explode. You never know what's going to be the moment that you look back on and you changed your life." And that for me was was a goal of mine. Every time I got an opportunity, I always said yes. I always took it on, even if I had reservations about the people I was working with. And yeah, I've been in some bad spots and worked with some bad people, but I've learned from that, and I always say that that's the best part for me. I've always learned something, and I've
Yeah,
always continued on, and I think that's what we all need to do.
that's what you got to
What
do.
excites you most about being an agent? What's the one thing that makes you want to tell everybody else that this is the job that they, to try?
It's funny. Somebody sent me a letter, and they said, like an email message, and said, well, I didn't hear from this person, but it's better than a rejection. And to me, a rejection is like, it's like engagement. So you say to them, oh, okay, you don't want this book. What types of things are you looking for? So what gets me excited about
Yeah,
it is to get those kinds of rejections. And then when you do finally get the series, like the Scottish series, another slam dunk, the one I was telling you about, the Stealing the
yeah,
Spanish, when it was there and he was like, yeah, this is good, because I was like, she's an excellent writer. This is an excellent book series. This is going to sell, it's like that gets me excited, because when you do finally accomplish something, that sense of just almost like wanting to dance on the table or something. But what excites me
yeah,
is like we talk, Crystal and I, we talk about different editors. Oh, this editor here or this imprint over there. If you actually hear back from them, even if they tell you no, but I've gotten one of the things that I did, and I was told this by a publisher. It's really really hard to get feedback, like real feedback
yeah,
on a book,
yeah.
and
It
I
is.
managed to do it because I'm really good at engagement. I'm a networking fiend. I really,
I know that feeling. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
I
think you would
just,
agree with me on that.
yeah, right. So that's what gets me excited: the networking, the engagement, the hearing back from people. You send them something, they look at it, and then then they look at it again because you did a really good job, or what they're looking for. So I used to be
Yeah,
a sales rep for publishers. You don't want to go into a bookstore, say in downtown San Francisco or New York or big city, and they're interested in left wing books. You don't want to try and sell them a Richard Nixon book. You don't want to try and sell them something because they're going to run away from you. You know what I'm saying? You want to figure out
yeah.
what
They're
they
never going to
like,
work with you again. Yeah,
curate it, and give it to them and say, here, like this Rough Edges Press. They're looking for series. I got this series, Art Theft Mystery, Scotland Yard. It's amazing. Here you go. And he's like, yeah, it sounds great. So to me, just hearing from somebody, if I get ignored, I don't like that. That I don't like. And that happens a lot.
yeah,
You know, Getting ignored is the worst. I hate it.
yeah. It is. It's hard,
It
and
happens
I
more
think a
often
lot
than
of
not.
authors. Yeah, yeah. It does, and
You don't want to be
it
ignored.
makes me sad as well. Yeah, yeah. It does. It makes me sad because you think to yourself, could they not even spend 2 minutes to write a no?
I know, or
Like,
just something, even
just
even if
at
it's
least put them out
even
their
if it's
misery.
hokey, like this one book I had was published before, and they said this totally inane thing. It's a great book. Why don't you just tell me I don't want it because it was published in England and I don't want to, I want to control everything. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
just say that, But
yeah, exactly.
guess what? Now she's going to look for my next submission. You see what I'm saying? And I'm going to know
Yeah,
what she wants. Okay, don't sell her something that's been self-published before, or don't send something to her that's published over in England. Don't do that.
yeah, yeah.
Give her something
You
that's
know what
totally
to do and what
original.
not to do. Yeah, yeah.
You know.
No, that makes sense, and I think that grows your relationship with publishers, and it almost takes a lot of the pressure off of publishers because they know that they can trust you to send them something worthy of their time because they're trying to do a million things in one
And
day.
you're interrupting their
Um,
day. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, you're taking them out of their routine and their time and maybe out of their coffee break, and you kind of have to show them that it's worth them
Worthwhile.
losing their coffee break and paying attention to what you've got to say and what you've got to offer. And yeah, it's a game of chess. That's what I like to say.
It is.
It's like a horrible game of chess. Yeah,
No, you're right. It's a back and forth, and you got to have you got to have a strategy. It's
Yeah.
like it could be a tactical strategy, or it could be a positional strategy. I used to play chess when back in '72 when Bobby Fischer and Boris, I was like really into it. And there is that idea
Yeah,
of
of
like the
course.
art of positional play, like how do you do
Hmm.
this, or like a tactical melee or something, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you've got this thing, it's all done that way. So I agree with you. It is like a game of chess. And I don't play chess anymore, but it influenced me as a person.
Yeah, it
As
does.
a person.
And I think you could almost apply the rules of chess to everyday life as well if if you're really looking for it.
You could.
So, what is your favorite genre to represent? If you could only represent one genre for the
I,
rest
I,
of your
I
life,
like mystery,
which
crime,
one?
thriller. That's my,
Mystery crime.
yeah,
That's a good
that's
answer.
it.
I like that.
Yeah, that's it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much
Um,
had the most success, just because I'm
yeah, I
passionate
like
about it. I
that.
mean, I started out in business books just because I had to start somewhere,
Yeah,
writing,
of course. We all have to
but,
start somewhere.
I like mystery, crime, and thrillers. Suspense,
It's
psychological.
it's actually because of you that I wrote the murder book, the crime book I wrote that I set in Shetland. Um, and I went out and I found a detective to help me with it. And funnily enough, I ended up working with a detective from the first 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he really guided me with it and really made me feel like the journey was worth it. To putting the time and the effort in was really worth it. And then, it's one that I know that I could give you the first 3 chapters and the blurb, and you could probably go sell tomorrow.
Yeah, possible.
And I know it's a series that you could probably go sell tomorrow. Is it grimy? Is it gritty? Yeah. Can I write the end? Have I written the ending yet? No. But I know what the ending is. It's just getting that time to finish projects has been a problem for me because I've got the podcast and I've been studying at uni,
right, exactly.
and trying to find all that time is it's a hard balance. But if it wasn't for you, I would never have.
Oh, jeez.
I would never written that book. So I have to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's why I will one day give it to you.
Yeah.
And be
you
very
can
proud
finish
of
writing
it. Yeah, of course.
First draft.
What's the hardest part of your job, would you say?
The hardest part of my job is kind of juggling the different things, put together. Like, in other words, like expectations.
Schedule?
Scheduling, but also expectations of authors. Like, for instance, revisions are like the name of the game, And very rarely do you get a book that's there isn't revisions. Just like trying to talk to them, trying to kind of keep the balls in the air, everything going at once. And, that's why I like if somebody has a whole bunch of, I have a whole bunch of books. I like to work on one just because I can develop it instead of doing like a whole, if it's a series, yeah, that's cool. And like I said, if it's a crime series or a mystery series, I mean, as long as it isn't historical, that's the other thing. It's like, I got this really great
historical is difficult. Yeah.
I got this really great one that's set in Las Vegas in the 30s when it was, and the guy's a Native American detective. He's actually the sheriff for the county. It's called Clark County,
Mm-hmm.
But it's historical, so it makes it hard. But then again, I like that kind of stuff too, So I'm just, the hardest thing for me in my business is kind of developing that, like list of contacts of stuff that I can do, and just kind of keep everything together, and then, along with the expectations of the author, like I told you about the poetry neuroscience guy. It's just like, I had it. It was like the easiest thing in the world, but it was like, no, So dealing with authors' expectations and dealing with trying to figure out exactly, like, the other thing is too. It's like I realize this too. Like, I work all the time. I don't. My life's my work, right? So I have to figure out something else to do, to relax.
You need to figure out where your downtime is, and when you need to take it.
Because Reno's got
go for a hike.
ability. Reno's really, there's a lot of hiking and stuff. But what I'm saying is just taking time off and trying to keep it in schedule.
Recharge your batteries. Yeah.
That's right.
What's the best quality that you admire in writing? Is there been a specific quality that you pick up on and you love more than anything else?
Well, I think the first person, narrative is kind of easier to do than the third person. So I'm impressed with somebody that can write it in a third person because I think it's harder to do. Also, I'm impressed with people that can take a historical character, let's say like Gandhi or Benjamin Franklin or Oliver Cromwell or something, and then like create a credible story with them, with the dialogue and stuff. So I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to. I haven't had a lot of luck with historical, fiction, but
yeah.
I'm still working on it. It's like you. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing it.
You'll find your way through, and you'll find the right ones to talk to.
So
Del Rey is great for that.
I don't really like second person. Second person just seems hokey to me. It might not be bad for like a short story, but the second person, like, you do this, you do that, you said this, you said that. It's like you walk into the room, it's like, oh, I hate that. But so first person can be good, but it's limited in a sense because you got to kind of move in and out. So the third person is the most impressive thing. If you can write something in the third person, that's hard to do, but it's better. It's kind of like black and white photography versus color photography. Color photography is everybody knows color photography, right? But if you get it in black and white and it's done, it's harder to do, but it's way more effective. You see, and so that's the way I look at third person. I'm impressed if somebody can write it, like the whole book in the third person.
I know it was something that you were impressed with when it came to me because that was all I wrote in.
Yeah.
And I think you were like, oh,
yeah,
Crystal doesn't know how to write any other way, which was slightly embarrassing for me, but
it happens, But that's what draws me in, it has to. I don't know. There just has to be a way of also beginning the book too, like how a book is kind of like what draws you in, like right away. For instance, I had
because you only have the first 10 pages. Yeah,
I had this one book. This lady was a book scout. She was really nice, really knew what she was doing. She's like, I got this book for you. It's a science fiction thing set in 30 or something, And I read the synopsis and it was terrible. I was like, this is really bad. And I said, well, I said to myself, I'll just read the first 10 pages just to see. I finished the whole 50 pages. Like, it was amazing. So writing a synopsis is a difficult thing for writers to do, to talk about what their book's about.
I find that's where I fall down. I do.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I never find it easy, and I've just done one recently, and I haven't done one in so long, and it felt so alien to do it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it was just like, do I even know what I'm doing anymore?
This is what you do. You tell the plot, and then how the book ends. If there's like a twist, you got to say what it is. And it's usually about 5 pages, and then I kind of boiled it down. How about 1,000 words? Like 1,000 words. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's what it was.
See, when I'm trying to stretch it over 30, though, if I have to do it over 3 pages or whatever.
I hate doing it, but I had to do it for one of my clients. I didn't get paid. It was like laborious, it was just like sitting there like, oh, I hate this. So, I understand that. But like I said, this one book,
I must admit, if you were my agent, I would probably say, all right, can you please do my synopsis? But
help me.
Because that's where I fall down on my face, and I know that at least like with you, it might stand a chance.
And the other thing is, what I love to do is pitches, like really short. It doesn't have to be grammatical, but 2 or 3. It's almost like a log line. 2 or 3 sentences.
I like log lines.
Marketing language. Just what you wanted them to do is look at the book, and I'm really good at that. I am really good at that.
Yeah, I know, and I could really trust you with that. Like, there's not many people I can say, hey, I can I'll trust you to do the log line, because you know me, I'm quite controlling over my work,
Right.
and that's because I've put so much into it usually.
You and everybody.
But you were like one of the very first people I actually just sort of said, okay, here,
Take it away.
and I trusted you with it. Yeah.
Well,
And
it's true.
that was like huge for
You
me.
got to, there's an art and there's a science, like we were talking about chess, right?
Yeah.
To it. And the pitch, I'm a pitch artist. I mean, I've always been that way. So I want people to look at it and take one look at it and then take another look at it, and I always put those in my emails when I send out stuff. And I don't send it out if I don't have it. And I always send it to you, the author, for you to
first. Yeah.
And some people are like, oh, it's great. Other people are like, oh, there needs to be a comma here. And I'm like, it's not grammatical. It doesn't have to be grammatical. It just has to be.
No, it doesn't. It just has to be grabbing. And that's why I felt like when I met you, you had an understanding of it. And I didn't feel like I was having to hold your hand like I had done with other agents.
Right.
And I didn't feel like I was an educational system that you were learning off of. You kind of just made me feel like I could relax and just focus on my writing. And that's all a published author wants to be able to do, is just to relax, focus on the writing, and not worry about the pitching or getting something published or any of that. They just want to be able to write, and they want that freedom to be able to write. And for a while you were able to give me that, and I was really honestly
happy,
so happy about that. And it did make me very happy, because I was able to say, okay, I can stop worrying now. I can just do what I do best. So yeah, I always thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that.
So moving into the life part of the podcast, what is the first thing that you do when you want to de-stress from, editing books with clients and, writing up the pitches and things like that? What do you like to do?
I like cooking.
That's a good answer. Yeah. I know a lot of ladies out there will be going, ooh,
yeah, I like to cook. And I have a friend. He was a client, but he's kind of a friend of mine too. He's got some land out in California, like up in the mountains, and we build a bonfire. Right. That's on Friday night. And Saturday, I just try not to do any work. It's hard, but I turn my computer, and my computer's on all week. And I try to turn. I couldn't do it last 2 weeks ago because I had another meeting to do on Saturday. But usually I don't. So Saturdays, I usually try to not do anything, at least until like the late afternoon, because it's just, so I like cooking and I like hiking, I haven't done it enough. I'd like to do it some more. It's good. The weather's getting warmer. So
yeah, it's less chilly and less, dangerous and frigid. Yeah.
We're kind of coming into the hot.
Oh, it makes sense.
Maybe get some.
Well, this brings us into the next question, which is, what hobbies do you enjoy, and which ones do you wish you could explore more?
Well, I like yoga. I've done it before, and I'm really kind of rusty now. So I was thinking about maybe like taking a class, going outside my comfort zone.
That would be, it's really good for you.
I knew what I was doing, but it's been so long, and I know I'm kind of like a little bit out of shape. So I hope I can do that. And then, like I said, just more of a routine of taking the time out of my day to say, like take a hike, as we were saying, or go along the river or something. So I like to do that, and like I said, like with cooking and other stuff. I've got this.
Find your peaceful place. Yeah.
I've got this new place, and I remember I came home, and it was like 8:00 at night. I just started cooking stuff, making all this food, and then I have it for the next day. I eat some of it, not a lot because it's later. And then I take it for the next day. So for me, it's, and I also don't mind doing dishes either. Like if there's dishes to do, it takes me out of my mind, out of my thing, and I just do them, And for a while there, I was working. I have a friend who's a handyman, and I was helping him. And I'm not very handy myself, but it was got me out of
Mm-hmm.
my head. It got me away from the office, and I've really found a great perspective. Hammering, drilling, working with concrete. Doing so. I don't do it. I don't do it anymore because I've actually expanded my business now, so I can work for
Yeah.
myself now, which is I'm so
Mm-hmm.
grateful for that. So humble about that, but I never gave up, and that's my message to you guys who are writers who are watching the Book and Life podcast is just don't give up. Don't ever give up. Just keep going.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
You get there in the end, and
Yeah,
it's a great experience. Yeah.
definitely.
What would be the one thing, if there was anything in the world you could do for a day? What would it be, and why?
Well, I like traveling, so probably like, going to the coast and walking along the beach or, going to Croatia and going down to Dubrovnik and hanging out in the coffee shop and, just traveling and looking, so if I could do that, there's another thing I want to mention that I know it sort of comes back to business, but when I first started this business, I mean, like in 2020, when there was the COVID-19, all this stuff kind of canceled. Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't able to travel to New York. I wasn't able to travel to London. I didn't have the money, right? So in a way, it
Yeah.
worked perfectly for me. You know what I'm saying? It was like I was so happy. I could just go to I had this office co-working space downtown. There's a big sign on the door that said we're closed. I'd just walk in and do my work. There was like 3 or 4 of us. They shut up all the
Mm-hmm.
parking meters, so it was like you park right in front, go in there and just do your work. So I think for me, if I could travel, I think if you travel a lot, I have a friend who's a travel agent. If you travel,
Mm-hmm.
it takes you out of your comfort zone. It's something new. So for me to go to the beach and just walk along the beach or something that would be cool. I like to swim, so I mean in the warm weather, that's another thing.
Oh, that's a really good answer, and I think there's a lot of people that can connect with that and understand that. I myself have idiopathic rheumatoid arthritis. No, I'm not saying that I'm an idiot. It just means that the doctors don't know what causes
I know it's a
my
problem,
arthritis to
yeah,
attack and make me ill.
and it's painful.
Sorry?
I get it.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Like last year, I went through. I got sepsis of my jaw joints, and I had to have them removed. And then it was 6 months I had to survive without being able to chew. And
So
then in July, I had them put. I was scheduled to have them put back in, and I stopped breathing before they even got started. And they had to put a breathing tube in my neck,
no,
and
no,
I had to get a chest drain put in because my lung collapsed,
oh,
and then the following week I was supposed to get married, and I actually was wheeled into surgery to get my jaw joints put in, and then it was a 3 long weeks to recover. But I got home, and then I got married in November, and
yeah, I saw
I
that.
just think, that's the fight that I have with this disease, and it eats joints and it eats cartilage and it goes after whatever it wants, and it's just that's what's made me strong. It's what's made me a warrior, and it makes me appreciate the day. And I guess I'm asking you, what makes you stop and smell the roses and appreciate the day?
I like to stop and smell the roses. You know, I really feel like you have to have I have like a zero tolerance for negativity. I have a friend who I've been trying to help do some stuff, and she's always going to make $1 million on Thursday, and then it never happens. And then she's always going to do something else, and she's on the phone. She works the hardest that she can work, but she's always making up excuses about, oh, this didn't happen, or this happened, or this. And I just like, I keep a positive attitude. If somebody asks me how I'm doing fabulous. That's what you tell me. He was like,
Mm-hmm.
splendid. That's my dad's word. He loves that word. Splendid. Everything's great. And so, like my daddy's 96 and he lives in old people's home, but an old age home. And it was like he's saying, well, my son, that's what my son does. It's like, how's it going? It's going great. And then in a way, I kind of feel like your mind over matter, your mind kind of creates that. You see what I'm saying? If something bad
Yeah.
happens, like so, it's like the Holocaust. Okay, I'll give you another. It's bad, right? Oh, people are dying, or the Ukraine. You mentioned Ukrainian war. It's bad, but you gotta understand that blessings and curses are both miracles. Both of them are miracles.
Yeah.
That's it.
And,
And
we
so
need to
I
balance the world
appreciate that.
out. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, if God's gonna be vengeful upon you, and so that's it. You can't do anything about it. But you gotta have faith, and you gotta be
Hmm.
positive all the time. And I'm always positive. I mean, I try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big
And
smile.
sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smile. I'm telling you.
I do that a
Yeah,
lot more
look
now.
in the mirror and smile, and I'm telling you, it creates it. But
It helps. Yeah.
you got to create your own reality.
What's your favorite place to go curl up in during the day? Do you like to go to a garden? Do you like have a cafe you like to go to, or a reader's nook? Is there a place you like to curl up with your manuscripts to read them?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm house sitting for these friends of mine, and I hate reading in bed. I don't like it, but I've gotten a little bit into the habit of it where I'm living now because it's smaller. So I've been doing that, and it's
Yeah.
it's not it's not it's not too bad. It's okay, but I like being able to, like, in the warm weather, to sit outside to do that. But there's like a little nook that I go to of nothing, and then there's a light there, and I kind of put up my feet and I read it, and it's good. I find more and more that I've had to read on the screen, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because I like to have the printed page and I like to do that and I can relate to it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work that way. So it depends. It really depends on what it is you're reading and what it is you're
Hmm.
doing. So yeah, so I like to kind of go into like a sort of a dark, like a sequestered place to read.
Yeah.
So I'm not shy.
That's good because it's getting calming and quiet.
Yeah. So I'm lucky in that way. I have a lot of different places that I can do, and I sort of adapted. Like I said, I didn't like to read in bed, but now in my house, it's just easier. I tried reading it like on the couch or in the living room and stuff like that, and it just didn't. I just found myself kind of distracted. So um,
Yeah.
I've developed. I think I've developed a habit. It takes like 21 days to create a habit. So I sort of created a habit of doing that. And
I know that feeling because I read in the bath
yeah,
and I read in the car and I read in bed. I have a terrible habit of not taking time away from books and stuff.
yeah, it's hard.
My husband's always saying, "Am I your taxi driver or are we
Yeah,
going
I know.
somewhere?"
Yeah, like, they're like,
And I'm like, "Sorry, honey,
yeah,
just reading."
no, yeah, you gotta watch.
So now we're at the favorite part for the readers and the listeners and everyone who loves this show. We're going to do the word game, and it can either be word association or it can be words that you can connect to a book. So this is going to test you a little bit.
I'm probably not gonna be very
So
good at
you
this.
can either say a book that comes to mind or a word that comes to mind. So you can do either one. Okay.
Okay,
So your first word is Dettol, which is like an antiseptic
what is it?
spray.
This
It's
word?
like a cleaning spray.
Cleaning spray. Cleaning spray. I just like a word
Kind of
comes
like
to
a
mind,
sterile
like
smell.
squeegee.
Squeegee, yeah, yeah.
That's good.
That's what you're going with,
Yeah,
squeegee.
squeegee.
What about lemons?
Lemons. I would think you with lemons, it's like this idea of like you got a lemon, you make lemonade, you know, and you
Oh, that's a nice one. Okay, oranges.
oranges. So that's like my favorite. Orange juice is like my favorite, my favorite drink. I like drink it all the time. So
There you go.
orange juice.
You're getting into a roll now. Spinning globes.
Yeah, spinning globes. It's like this idea of like spinning the globe and then like putting your finger on some place like Mauritania or some like weird or like Angola or some weird place, and imagine going there. Imagine what it's like to be
Yeah.
there. Or read a travel book.
Fun,
Read
yeah.
Bruce Chatwin. He's great.
What about chalk?
Chalk. I think of like art, like chalk art. There's a chalk art festival here in Reno, and I have a friend that's a chalk artist, so I think of like different colors of chalk and being able to kind of chalk it up.
Last but not least, marker pens.
Marker pens. Is that like magic markers?
Flat markers.
Like magic markers?
Yeah.
Just kind of like making signs, like make a sign out of a magic marker. So I just sort of see like it as a kind of a sign.
Sign at a show or a concert.
Yeah, or something, being able to use it.
Well, that's the end of our show, folks.
Oh no.
Eric, you've made it to the end.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you.
It has been a very honor to have you on, and I was really lucky to meet you at the time I met you. And I hope one day that we're sitting here on the show talking about a book I've signed or some good news for us in the future. And I'm gonna stay positive.
Yeah, that's it. You got to stay positive.
We're gonna do something great. But yeah, guys, that's the show for today. But please come back next week where we've got another amazing writer that will be joining us. And I'm sure that you're not going to expect who they are. That's all from us, folks, and I will see you again next Monday.